Pregnancy is a natural process, so if it's not happening or if it's not sticking, something is missing. After having a family member go through infertility and experiencing a miscarriage myself, I realized how little support and education women have around infertility. I want to change that. I'm Dr. Jane Levesque. I'm a naturopathic doctor and a natural fertility expert. Tune in every Tuesday at 9 a.m. for insightful case studies, expert interviews, and practical tips on how you can optimize fertility naturally. If you've been struggling with infertility, pregnancy loss, women's health issues, or you just want to be proactive and prepare yourself for the next big chapter in your life, this show is for you.
Today, I sit down with Tina, one of my practitioners, and we're going to break down libido. Libido when it comes to fertility, how it plays a role in male fertility, how it plays a role in female fertility. It's a very multifaceted topic, so Tina and I break it down, and we break down and talk about some of the treatment strategies. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Tina, we're back.
We're back. Hi.
It's so good. I love it because usually I don't get to meet the people. Like I just get to talk to them once. And then sometimes twice at once, but like we get to connect every month and it's exciting. And we're going to talk about libido today and how it's connected to infertility. And we're going to break down probably male and female. I'm assuming you take the lead and tell us what we're going to learn about today.
Yeah, for sure. So it's been a pattern I'm seeing specifically with one couple that I've been working with for a while. They've improved exponentially. And the last time I met with them, I said, the next time we meet, what do you want to be the next thing to improve? And both of them are struggling with libido. And that's been since we started our work together. And now they're like, we feel so good, but the libido hasn't improved. And that's what we want to see next. And so, it's very multifaceted. And this is what I had to speak to them about. And this is where conversations sometimes have to get raw and real. There's definitely a physical component there, and it's very much tied to fertility, but there are behavioral and psychological components as well.
Yeah, I think multifaceted is an understatement because it's like it's two people, not just one. And then it's like your own libido, but then also keeping in mind your partner's libido, matching that up, matching up your schedules, matching up there's so many different pieces. So do you want to break down the immediate questions that I know, and this is something that my clients struggle with as well. I don't think it's something that improves first. It's usually one of the last things to go, unfortunately. But the questions are, male libido versus female libido. We can take turns breaking the two down. What causes issues from the physical, psychological, mental, emotional, and then for each person, if you will, for male and the female, and then we can dive into how do we go about repairing and improving our libido.
Yeah, so when we look at the male, I think it's important to recognize that testosterone is a driving force for libido. But in that, it's not just, he has low testosterone. We have to look at why, right? And so right away, I'm looking at the amount of body fat that's present, because the more body fat, the more it aromatizes testosterone. And what that means is it converts it into estrogen. And that's where we start to see potential things like estrogen dominance, right? Is when testosterone is being converted into estrogen. And now if we're seeing this low testosterone, we right away need to think, okay, what's happening with sperm production, right? Because that's going to drive sperm. Testosterone is made in the testes. If testosterone is low, it's going to impact sperm. And if sperm is impacted, well, what's happening with fertility, right? And so body fat, we also need to consider.
I will say body fat both ways because the body is all about balance. And I have had males who are like, I want to be under 10% body fat. And it's like, that's not great for fertility. You don't want 8% body fat for a fertility isn't great. For females, that body fat is very different, and we'll talk about that. But I do think it's a healthy balance between that 12 to 15% versus when we're getting into 18, 20, 25, 30% body fat for a male, that's really high. And then we're, of course, seeing, it's not just fat, right? As you said, it's producing hormones, it's making there's an inflammatory cascade of things that's going on for us to unpack, whether it's blood sugar, whether it's cortisol, whether it's estrogen, whether it's whatever, infection, you name it. But I do think it's important to mention, because there's some guys out there or some ladies with some dudes who are very diligent and they're very fit, but we actually have to tell them hey, you gotta chill out a little bit. eat some fat, just enjoy things instead of being so rigid.
Yeah. And, you see it with men that are very lean. They don't have the energy to produce that libido. They're just depleted. And I'll tie into neurotransmitters in a minute and how those impact. But so now we're looking, okay, so there's body fat, whether too high, too low, and the impact that has on hormone production and aromatization. And then we need to consider, if you think of the veins in the penis, they're very small, right? And so if we look at...
Let's talk about the veins in the penis.
Yeah, get it.
My husband will love overhearing this.
Of where we're going to first have issues with blood flow,
Yes.
it's going to start with those smaller veins. And then it's going to move up to the larger veins in the heart. And then we're looking at the carotid. So we can see years prior, if there is erectile dysfunction and libido issues, those lead into cardiovascular disease. And then down the road, potentially stroke, right? And we have this, we can catch it really early when we consider the small veins that exist within the penis and the libido that's happening there. And libido and erectile dysfunction are very connected, because if a guy is in the middle of intercourse and he can't get it going, or it fails really quick, now there's this psychological component. The next time he goes to have intercourse, the second he thinks, oh my gosh, I don't want that to happen again, it happens. And now it's happened twice. And then
because now you're bringing stress into the situation.
So we have this psychological component. And this is where, when I'm speaking to that couple in front of me, I'm asking, are you aroused? Do you have libido when watching pornography, when you're not in the bedroom with your husband or wife? And if the answer is yes, then there is a psychological component. Things are working physically. There's something happening psychologically. And so this is where we have to really, peel back layers and understand what's going on there. And that's where those hard questions have to come up. So libido, being multifaceted, is really diving in, asking those hard questions. Then there's the questions around, can you look at yourself in the mirror naked and like what you see? And this is for men and women, I think, but I think for women, potentially more, right?
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. And so there's those layers. And then we have to look at neurotransmitters. And I think this also does tie to how much they're eating, if they're absorbing what they're eating. And we look at this with their nutrient panels when they come to us, because amino acids, gut function, right? Amino acids come from protein. And actually, if serotonin is too high, libido and erectile dysfunction are more present. We need dopamine to be high and serotonin to be low or lower to have that libido and proper erection. So this is where, we have to really dive into, and they suggest men that are dealing with low libido and erectile dysfunction to avoid pornography, because it gives them that quick spike of dopamine, but it's not translating to those, that
prolactin, the oxytocin, and the euphoria that comes with human connection. And
that's right.
Yeah, the thing that I want to give out a shout out to the men, and especially in the fertility space, where sometimes it becomes such a mechanical process where it is like, man, we used to just have sex because it was fun. And now it's like, I hate seeing that happy face. Like, I remember telling one of my patients, I just hate seeing that happy face, which is the LH strip. There's certain LH strips that give you the happy face of you're ready to conceive. And he's like, I just hate seeing it because it takes away all of the spontaneity. I probably would have, but now there's this pressure to perform. And sometimes we as women look at it, well, guys should be ready to go whenever. And it's not necessarily the case, right? There is, like you said, a big psychological, mental, emotional component. And we've talked about it as in a couple, but also work is a big piece, right? So if you're really stressed and you have a lot going on, and it's last thing you're thinking about is being intimate, and then you're looking for that dopamine hit from scrolling or shopping or drinking or whatever, food, because you just want the relief, not realizing that, it's perpetuating a problem deeper.
That's right. And so in considering this couple, that was the question that I had, because he is highly stressed with work. incredibly burnt out. Cardiovascular system is extremely inflamed. So we know, like I said, right, the small veins first, then the larger veins. So these libido issues, they're not new. They've been happening for a while because we're seeing this cardiovascular inflammation. But his work world is so stressful that he just doesn't have the energy to come home and want to perform. And this has to be a conversation between couples. I think as a society, it's still very taboo because we expect men to just go. And they feel less manly when they can't. And it needs to
Totally.
be an open conversation with, partners to really dive in. This couple is really good at having that conversation. It doesn't seem like there's discomfort there. It can often translate over to
Some discomfort, they're just handling it well. There's always discomfort.
For sure.
I just think it's naive to think that when there's no discomfort, that means you've had that conversation so many times, it's easier for you to have it, is how I see it.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think, she has expressed that she also has low libido, but she has questioned, is it that I have low libido or is it fear of being rejected? And I think we see that a lot with couples as well is, does he not want to be with me because he's not attracted to me? And that's a huge thing. And again, multifaceted, right? This brings in the psychological. And I think when we try to unravel if it's just physical, if it's just psychological, or if it's a combination, that guides our treatment strategy quite a bit. For men, there are things that can be done to kind of interrupt this cycle of erectile dysfunction and improve libido. So, we're a very natural route, but I don't know if you've heard, but very low dose Cialis every day can actually help interrupt the cycle because it's going to slow down or it's going to cause the erection. So now that thought of, oh my God, I can't do this, I'm not lasting, it interrupts it. And it's like, I can do this. And then, oh, I can do this again. And there's actually the side effects with low dose Cialis are like headache, potential back pain. There's no really big side effects that we see with a lot of pharmaceuticals. It actually helps the epithelial of the cells. So it's really good. And it's not something that they need to stay on long standing because it interrupts that behavioral pattern and that anxiety in the bedroom. So they can come off of it and eventually improve libido and get rid of that erectile dysfunction. So that's one of the treatments that's being used for the physical. But I think sex therapy is also something that can help with the psychological for men and women and is being used really successfully. I also encouraged this couple to bring play back in the bedroom because, like you said, I think it's like on the clock, gotta do it. And like, we need to bring fun and like laughter back in because there's moments that are really awkward and stupid. And like, we have to be able to laugh about those. I think that's really important for both as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, and this is where the therapy is going to be so individual because sometimes it's, like low dose DHEA that helps to improve and increase testosterone. And sometimes it's getting rid of that inflammation. And sometimes it's coming home earlier. And a couple that I'm thinking about that has like really put intimacy, and it's like, oh, we'll just do the IVF route. So then it's like the act that gets you to have the baby, we for some reason forget and think that it's not important because now we have the science that's coming in. But there's so much research, even when you're doing a transfer, of having sex post-transfer, how that helps to support implantation and supports the microbiome and the oxytocin that the woman releases. And because the man also releases oxytocin and the euphoria and that exchange, how that relaxes the woman and relaxes the immune system and allows her to accept. So there is so much that happens during sex that we kind of don't even really realize and have forgotten. And I think genuinely it's because we are so distracted, we are so stressed out, we are so toxic, we don't have time for intimacy. And so with some of my couples, I'll say, like, let's not even worry about sex yet. Let's get you intimate. Mm-hmm. So for women, and we'll go into that, it's like, well, it's important how the woman is acknowledged throughout the day and how many times it's the little, like, how did he touch her throughout the day? And did she feel heard? Did she feel taken care of? That leads up, as opposed to just the act of like, okay, tonight we're going to have sex because I'm ovulating. And intimacy is, well, like taking a shower together, or holding hands while you're walking, or cuddling, or taking a bath, or whatever. those are all components where you can start to get out of the dopamine cycle and start to build that connection. And I have patients who come and it's really, intimacy is like difficult to fit into the schedule, and they don't really think about it. They go on vacation and they're like, man, we had sex every day while we were away. And I'm like, okay, so how can we bring some of the vacation people home? Because that tells me you're now relaxed and their desire is actually there and it's quite strong. It's just you're so bombarded with all your daily to-dos, you don't have time to tap into it. And then we just don't think it's that important. Where, I mean, the studies just showing out how, like, for women having orgasms on a regular basis, how it changes her skin, her hormones, how she feels, like so many things, let alone the connection, that she feels for her partner. And obviously the changes for the man as well. So yeah, like I think the therapy is very individual and it just depends so much on what's going on with a couple. And there's lots that can be done.
And then, in touching on the female absolutely needs testosterone for
Yes.
the libido, the arousal piece. But estrogen is very important for the desire. The female needs both. And so we often see this for older women or women going through perimenopause where estradiol is decreasing. Not only do we have less lubrication in the vaginal area, thinner, painful sex now, but the desire and the arousal diminish.
And the confidence goes with estrogen too.
That's right.
Because usually, right, like the weight comes on and
So estradiol helps with fat distribution. Women, and I often say this, I'm like, okay, where do men carry fat? And it's typically like around the belly, right? Women carry it in our thighs, in our hips, but as estradiol decreases, that fat distribution changes and we carry it more in our abdominal area, like males do, because we have lower estradiol. And so we just start to notice it more because it's all in one area, it's all in one region. Confidence declines, where I say, can you look at yourself in the mirror naked and be happy with what you see? If not, you're not going to feel comfortable being intimate with your partner.
Yeah, it's like trying to turn off the lights in the bedroom to make sure that nobody sees you. And it's like you think that's
being on top, right? Like different positions, because now you're like, oh my gosh, what's he looking at? What do I look like? You're not enjoying the moment. Your mind is in 1,000 places, just like his mind is when he's thinking, can I maintain this erection right now? And then right away, he's not. So for women, it's really difficult, but those two hormones play a big role. And as they decline, we do start to see issues there. One way to combat that is a suppository of estradiol as you get older, which is not systemic estradiol. It's just going to help with lubrication in the vaginal area. Over time, it will increase the thickness of the skin in that area, so there's not soreness when there's penetration. But then there's all those behavioral pieces and there's communication. And for the woman, it's like you said, if you're not even getting a kiss through the day, but then there's this like, we're going to go to the bedroom and we're going to get it on, there's no warming up there. And, a woman who is highly stressed is not going to want to be touched in the bedroom. And
she's going to be in her head a lot too, right?
Yeah. And if those issues exist prior to bringing a baby home, it is shown that women, at least 6 months postpartum, if not more, they're not getting back that desire because they feel touched out, exhausted. Hormones aren't back on board at the beginning.
Nutrients are depleted.
So her body's still doing a lot of work after delivering. And so that's where we can just see this vicious cycle that spirals through conception, bringing the baby home and onwards. I was working with a couple that, their first job was just a 10-second kiss every morning. And it felt so awkward for them because they hadn't kissed in forever. So, and it's important to have those little tasks. As uncomfortable as they feel, it is important to start bringing that back in.
Yeah, I say the skin to skin contact is huge. Like, and whether it's just, like, hey, can I have my hand on your belly or on your leg, like whatever I can reach while you're falling asleep. or having your husband put hand on on your chest, or you laying flat on him and that having that skin to skin and just without any intention, I think is grossly underestimated. And I think because you and I, like, we learned so much about this stuff. And I know, like, Leah has so many lectures and posts that she's been making on oxytocin, and then you learn it and you can feel it. And then you're like, oh, this is why I do it. And this is why we share it, because you start doing it and you'll be like, I crave hugs. I want a hug and I need someone to hug me and I need that skin to skin contact. And I mean, that's what babies need. If you think about the first thing, they're like skin to skin, skin to skin. That's what makes them feel safe. It's like, that's still true for us. We're just, older beings, if you will. I do want to talk to you about, because this is interesting, that we're seeing a lot of lower libido in younger population.
Yes.
Which is, like, I don't want to say alarming, but it is alarming. I don't remember having so many women, now it's been 10 years in practice of, like, you're in your 20s and you have a low libido, or you need lubrication in your early 30s, versus like you're in perimenopause. And even like perimenopause can be divided into 3 stages. Like that first stage of initial hormones change, where a lot of women are not going to notice big changes, but then there is the estrogen is all over chaos, and you'll actually have way more lubrication, and you'll probably ovulate like crazy for some months and then not others. And then there's like the shutdown phase. But yeah, seeing it in younger populations and seeing like lack of white cervical fluid production and lack of libido and all of that. You want to speak a little bit about that?
Metabolic dysfunction. We're seeing obese kids much younger. We're seeing blood sugar dysregulation so young. Kids are on their devices, the toxic load.
And even if you're not obese, you can have blood sugar dysregulation. Yes. I'll tell you that. Yep. I myself have a much higher, like I have my glucose monitor on me now, because I'm realizing that I'm not dropping as low as I used to at nighttime. And it like depends on my activity during the day. But I have a patient who's like, she is thin as can be, and her insulin and HOMA are like through the roof. And I'm just like, what the hell? So we're getting a CGM on her, but it's metabolic dysfunction does not mean you have excess weight. Mm-hmm. It means that you have a dysregulation with your blood sugar and inflammation and how your metabolism is working. And that has a cascade of effects.
Yeah.
Sorry, I wanted to add that.
Yeah.
I've been struggling with blood sugar.
If you look around in the schools, we're seeing a very different, to me, we're seeing much more feminine looking young boys. I think,
all the xenoestrogens, all the plastics, man, like it's crazy. Atrazine literally feminizes frogs. Like we've seen that in research and its studies. It's horrifying that they're putting that stuff on our food and in our water.
That's right. And I've spoken to this before, in that a mom that exposes the male fetus to phthalates and things like that, we see huge changes in their hormones and fertility ability. But I think with these metabolic dysfunctions and toxic load, we are seeing lower testosterone in men and women from a younger age. And so we are seeing huge issues with libido and erectile dysfunction and cervical fluid much earlier, because we are just a very metabolically unhealthy society. Low testosterone definitely triggers type 2 diabetes in males. So, again, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, these are all things that we can prevent if we open up the conversation and start getting real with what males and females are experiencing in the bedroom.
Yep. Yeah, I think the other component that I would speak to is like the cell phone. Mm-hmm. Just like we're so distracted, and Leah has this like one lecture. I need to like go back and watch it, because she talks about the dopamine loop and how to like get out of the dopamine. There needs to be prolactin rise, and then there's oxytocin, and then euphoria. And oxytocin is that chemical, that helps us feel connected. It's the thing that we as mothers release when we have our baby, but the truth is we release it every time we feel connected and loved and supported. And if we don't have that human touch, a lot of the times, or at least even the thought of it, you kind of get stuck in this dopamine and prolactin. Prolactin starts to rise, but nothing happens out of it. And so the dopamine loop is I need the likes, I need to scroll, I need to eat something, I need to buy something, and we're very much training people to do that. Like I have such a hard time, like I know the phone is bad, and then like, oh, there's 10 minutes that's gone and I can't get back. Mm-hmm. Now I'll catch myself 10 or 15 minutes versus an hour or 2 hours. But in reality, when we meet people and they're like, we don't have time because our lives are so busy. And then I'm like, what are you doing every day? And then we write it down, and I'm like, So there's at least an hour and a half there of like my relaxed time. And it's like, but it's not really relaxing because you're kind of stimulating yourself, you know? And so I do see that as a big problem. And even I was driving today, I saw teenagers, and there was like a group of teenagers talking, but there was a few teenagers who were just on the side staring at their phones, and they were totally fine. And it's like, we used to just like stand awkwardly with nothing.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah, which is hard, but it allowed, like, it made you go out and build the connection. Whereas now you're like, I don't need to. I have this thing that is distracting me, and I'm building a connection online. And there's lots of pros and cons to that. We are all interconnected more, but it's also not the same as having that. There's a lot of people who say things online that would never say it in person.
That's right.
And so we need to have those in-person conversations to build our ability to connect to people. And I don't feel like that's not happening, you know?
Yeah. And this is why, I started saying it's very multifaceted. It is not one thing.
Yep.
The only thing that I can say across the board is we do need to open that conversation so that we can change things, because it can be changed. Like I said, there are a number of options. There's peptides that can help with it. There's the talking it through. There's games and just having fun with your partner again. There's just so many things to consider. I think the biggest piece of it is just knowing that stress is a big driving force, and putting down your defensiveness and knowing, I said this to a client of mine who her boyfriend delayed ejaculation, which is a whole other issue. There's premature ejaculation, delayed ejaculation. Those are different from erectile dysfunction, but delayed ejaculation. And she's like, maybe he's just not into me. And I said, right now, all you know is it took him longer to ejaculate. The stories and stuff are what are preventing us from communicating. So when we look at factually, what do I know right now is this. And
yeah, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah, it is. But it's important to do that, because I think that allows us to have the conversation, and it allows our partner to be honest with what they're dealing with. But it is very difficult. And I think that's where we have to really, I think that's what makes the strongest couple. Like, I can talk to Ken, my husband, about any of it, and be totally fine,
Yep. Yeah, because you've had the conversation before.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do think it's hard. Like, I think that my next question to you is, well, what about if you feel like you are doing everything and the libido hasn't come back? I am a big proponent of, like, you're doing everything that you know that you can do. There is not everything. And I do think that there is a big piece about having difficult conversations, and whether it's not feeling safe with your partner, not feeling attracted to your partner, or maybe you're not actually enjoying sex because you don't know what you like, so he has no idea what you like. And so it becomes this thing like, wow, I should be enjoying it. And it's so romanticized in movies, and where women are just 2 minutes and everything is great. And it's like, that's not actually how it works. Like, I just remember listening to many sex podcasts and feeling so validated to be like, oh my God, like, we do need touch points throughout the day. We do need a certain amount of time. We do need to know what works for us. And I don't think that women have, like, they don't, when sex becomes not an enjoyable thing, I'm always wondering why, because it should be something that you're really looking forward to. Maybe there is not enough time in the day because you prioritize other things. But the way that I see it is like, man, this is your time just to be you, and to connect with this person that you have chosen to spend your life with. It's, like, it should be this really cool time that you make for each other, and the euphoria and the connection and all that stuff. And I feel like that's not really happening, especially when we have been struggling with infertility for a while, and it's just this timed sex and, oh, we got to do it again. But research shows when a woman orgasms, and especially if the couple can time it together, from the fertilization rates to implantation, that it improves. And it's like a significant percentage. It's like 15 to 20% increase in fertilization. And it's like, that's almost the stats of IVF, by the way. So
yeah,
we should figure this out.
We should be figuring it out. And I think, we do a lot of that physical work to get a couple there. Like I said, with this couple, we've done a lot of the physical stuff. And now it's, what questions do you guys need to ask each other? And I did ask that. I asked the wife, I said, do you know what feels good? Do you tell him what feels good? Because that's important. Because guys can't, like, they don't know, there's
Love them to death, but they have no idea.
have no-
I'm not a mind reader. That's what my husband is.
give me a clue. Like, don't fake it. Be honest. Be like, that's not the spot. This is. But if you don't know because you haven't gotten comfortable with your own body, then they don't know. And that goes for the guy as well. What feels good for you? Do you communicate that? Like, it's so important. I remember when I was living in Central America, I was much younger and I was with a group of women, and this girl was like, he slaps my ass. And like, I don't like that. I don't know why I've never told him that I don't like that. Like, he's going to keep doing it. And then if you don't like it, it's an immediate turn off, right? And so,
Yeah, because he loves it probably. And he's like, yeah, she likes that. And you're like, I hate it. Yeah. Well, it's like us women finding our voice, right? And it's an uncomfortable and it's a vulnerable state. So you might not be able to have that conversation while you're in that state, but to have it outside of that is important.
yeah. Yeah. And I think I'm like so glad I've grown to the point where I'm so comfortable to be like, love this, don't ever do that again. But it takes a lot of growth to get to that point. And I think we just need to be okay with being silly, and like stop making it so serious. Because like, it's going to be awkward to take your socks off in the middle of it. Yeah, it's weird. But just be okay with like the silly,
Yep, totally.
Yeah.
I love this, Tina. Thank you. Such a good topic. Do you have anything else? Did we miss anything? Did I address it? Did we address the questions?
I think we got everything. I think just understanding there's a lot to it. And
if you guys have more questions, you let us know. You send us a message in the DM. We go live every week. We talk about the things that you want to talk about. Genuinely want to help you piece the puzzles together, because I know a lot of people are not doing it. I know when you're sitting down with your IVF specialist, they're not like, how's your libido? Are you intimate still? It's like they should be.
Yeah. And just know
So we're
like, this can lead to the end of relationships, right? Like, it's serious.
and it does.
The root of it. And so we didn't touch on like tons of treatments or anything like that. But if you have questions about resources or what can be done, reach out, because we have a wealth of knowledge in that.
Yep. Yeah. And I don't want to say like, I'm cautious with treatments because I don't want people to go, well, I've tried everything, because it's not about doing everything. It's about doing the right thing. Right therapy, right person, right time. And so for some people, it might be a little bit of a pharmaceutical, while for others, it's like a little bit of hormone replacement therapy, while for someone else, it could be a herb combination of some tribulus or some maca or some adrenal support or some cardiovascular support, or it could just be getting a counselor and getting some heavy stuff off your heart. Treatment isn't a one size fits all.
That's right.
And especially when you're working with a couple, like even with an individual couple. So I'm cautious to give a bunch of treatments because I don't want people to go, oh, I've tried it and it didn't work for me. And it's like, well, that's probably not that natural medicine doesn't work. It's that wasn't the right
thing for you
in the first place.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Keeping it open-minded. But thank you, Tina. And I'm excited to see what you come up with next time we chat.
So excited. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. To read the full show notes of this episode, including summary, timestamps, guest quotes, and any resources that were mentioned on the episode, visit www.drjanelevesque.com/podcast. And if you're getting value from these episodes, I'd love it if you took 2 minutes to share it with a friend, rate, and leave me a review at www.ratethispodcast.com/Dr. Jane. The reviews will help with the discoverability of the show. And who knows, I might share your review on my next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's make your fertility journey your healing journey.